This is Katie Brohard from Duck Potatoes World. I have finished the back yoke of this sweater and I have the front yoke stitches on a lifeline. I am going to pick these stitches up so that I can knit the front yoke of my sweater. So here's the first stitch, and I'm actually going to try to pick up 156 stitches, and I'm just going to do that by sliding my needle, along the white lifeline and catching each one of those blue stitches as I come to them. I had somebody ask me how to pick the stitches back up from the lifeline, and it's actually really easy. That's why you use a lifeline or put stitches on hold, is so that they're really easy to pick back up again. A big advantage to lifelines is that I don't have to worry about twisting the stitches because they are being held in proper orientation by the lifeline. And as long as I don't skip any, I don't have to worry about any of them being dropped either. I'm a little blurry. There we go. Now I like stitch markers because I don't like to count. So like I said, I'm picking up 156 stitches. So every time I hit a stitch marker, that's 39 stitches picked up. So that's the first 39. I apologize for the state of my fingernails. I try to make sure they're always polished, but that didn't happen today. And I have to keep kind of moving the sweater around underneath so it doesn't pull, because if anything pulls on these stitches, it can make it a little bit harder to pick them up. Kind of try to keep my thumb underneath the stitches. It just sort of supports them and makes it a little bit easier to see where they are. There's my second set of 39. Now for my lifeline, I don't usually use a piece of yarn. I usually use, this is a piece of crochet thread, or I'll use sometimes dental floss. I want something that's smooth and slick. I don't want it to be sticky or grabby because I don't want it holding on to the stitches. I want it to slide smoothly. And I don't use lifelines terribly often, although I will use them sometimes with big lace patterns. I'll definitely use them like in a Stephen West shawl where you're changing stitches often. I'll use them when I start a brioche section or a big lace section on something. Carefully slide my stitches down. I'm almost done here. There's only 3 sets of 39 and 156. So I'm not counting my stitches right now, but I will go back when I knit and count them and make sure I have them all. But I counted them when I put them on the lifeline, so I'm pretty confident they're all there. I could, of course, count them as I as I come along here, but I just didn't. That one's a little harder to see for some reason. Oh, because it's, see my, so what's happened here, I don't know if you can tell, but my blue stitches have kind of gotten sucked down because my lifeline was a little bit short and it's been pulled on. So I can pick those back up and make them show by pulling on this lifeline and loosening it up through here and kind of tugging it up. And now I can hopefully see where that blue stitch is hiding down there by just following the white yarn. Got that one. See if I can find the other one. It's just sort of been pulled down. So I'm going to pick up the waste yarn and tug on it to bring it up again. See where that white yarn is? That's where I want my needle to go. See it right there? There's the stitch. There's my needle, and here's the last stitch. Now I actually tied this closed around some extra yarn that I had at the beginning of my yoke here on this side for the back, just because I didn't want to cut this yarn off from the yoke. I probably will use it to do if I have a seam I need to seam up, or a hole. Sometimes you get little armpit holes. I like to leave a little yarn on in case I need to sew up a hole. I probably don't need that much yarn, but I was also paying attention to my stripe pattern, and I wanted to actually begin knitting at the very, very beginning of a color set of color stripes. So I began right where the red ended and the gray began, and I just left this on here, and then I used my lifeline to kind of tie it up out of my way. Now that my stitches are all picked up, I can just break that lifeline. I can attach my yarn where my pattern says. At this point, I could choose to either go ahead and pull this all the way out, or I could leave the lifeline on while I knit the first row, just in case I didn't pick up a stitch with my needle. That way the lifeline will keep it from falling. And that's what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to leave this white yarn in while I knit this next row, just to make sure that I didn't drop anything or miss any of the stitches when I was picking them up. But you can kind of see here, there's my waste yarn, or my lifeline, underneath my cable, and you can kind of see it goes, both my cable and my lifeline are going through all of my stitches, and that's what I want. So there you are. That is how to pick up your stitches on your lifeline. Okay, and I do want to show you, so if you decide to leave the lifeline in and knit your first row, I want you to see how that lifeline is riding along underneath my stitches, or underneath my needle, and it's not knit into my stitches. So I'll just show you, you don't want to accidentally knit your lifeline into your project. So you want to be really careful when you're knitting to make sure that you see how my lifeline is underneath my stitch and I'm going into only my stitch. You don't want to accidentally pick up your lifeline and knit it with your yarn so that you don't have it running underneath there, because that will be harder to get out. So just be careful that when you're knitting that first row, you're not picking up your lifeline. It's staying good and underneath your needles. You can see it running nice and straight up under there. All right, so I have picked up all of my stitches. I have knit that first row. I didn't count when I picked up. I did count as I knit. I was picking up 156 stitches. I don't want to ever have to count to 156 because if I lose my place, I have to start over and count all 156 stitches again. So I always divide my stitch counts. I divided 156 into 4 sections of 39. So here's my first section of 39. Here's my second section of 39. I had a third section of 39 and a fourth section of 39. So this way, if I lose count in the middle, I don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. I can just go back to the previous stitch marker and know that each section has 39. And I am now ready to pull my lifeline out because I really don't need it all the time. And so I'm just gonna come down here. You can see how it's all neat and tidy and none of my stitches, my lifeline is not knit into any stitches. Now it'll still, if you accidentally knit your lifeline, you'll see it coming over the top of your cable. If you did that, it will still come out, just might not come out as easily. This way it's gonna pull right out. Just slides on out beautifully. Doesn't catch on anything. If you accidentally knit it, it's going to be it might be a little bit harder to pull out, but, and there it is. And now I'm ready to continue on with the front yoke of my sweater. Thanks for your time. Hope this was helpful. Have a blessed day.